Some of them, probably, probably, reminiscent of resistance to change, resistance to new ideas, worry, concern about abandoning our library traditions and our values. But a lot of them very rational observations about the state of ebooks and the state of the kinds of services that we can offer as libraries. So I think it's fair to say there has been selective resistance, at least across the CIC libraries, to sort of big deal approaches. And many of those selectors, have looked and pointed at user resistance to uptake of these materials, some faculty feeling that there's just not instructionally sound to offer things electronically, still want their students working with print. And, some of that could be rational in some disciplines. Some of those folks are absolutely right that print's a better format for the work that they're doing. In other cases, I would sort of write it off to, well, yes, there's always going to be those laggards at the tail end who are just slow to adopt new technologies and slow to adopt social change. The issue of limited collection budgets is obviously a very real concern now, as almost all of us are facing downturns in our budgetary or fiscal status. But, on the other hand, many libraries have just been reluctant to abandon past commitments in order to embrace new technologies and new opportunities. So at some point, we have to look at how, at how we free up dollars in order to move in new directions. So while we're willing to add new things, we're not often willing to make the swap, say we have to give up something in order to do this thing. Unpredictable availability has been the most difficult issue for the CIC as a consortium. If a publisher can't tell us what they're going to publish electronically, we're in a very difficult position to move forward with the publisher. And I say that because ultimately our strategy has been to help our libraries move money from print commitments into electronic commitments. And if a publisher can't tell us what's going to be available electronically so that a library doesn't have to buy it in print, if they can't tell us that before decisions are made about print, we can't move forward. So that's been a limitation in the market that I think is actually improving and getting better, but it's getting better sort of in one publisher by publisher, and we just can't assume that yet. Access restrictions, we've seen great improvement in the market on this digital rights management issues. Can we use it in reserves? Can we use it for ILL? Can folks download this? The publishers have really moved a long way to make these things much more accessible for our campus users once we subscribe. Platform limitations is a real difficulty, not because the publishers are doing a bad job with this, but because most libraries haven't really worked out a good aggregation strategy so that they can point to Elsevier books and Wiley books and Springer books and Cambridge books all in one fell swoop, as opposed to sending people from platform to platform to find these works. The issue of archival insecurity is very real, although I think many of the publishers are now working with Portico and developing other strategies to address that concern in the library market, and I hope you all will talk more about that in your breakout sessions this afternoon. And an issue that I'll come back to at the very end here is that, to the extent that library staff and library budgets and processing routines are still fragmented into these little subject groupings. We have an anthropology selector, we have an archaeology selector, we have a Southeast Asia selector, we have a women's studies selector, and each of them have little budget pots. It makes it very, very difficult to make a sort of overarching cross-curriculum collection accessible in that kind of environment. And I would see that as probably the most difficult challenge for us to overcome, is how we structure our our selection activity in this day and age, and how we structure our budgets. So I think I have one or two more slides here that I'll just run through very quickly. For me, the opportunity that we have now is really a management and administrative opportunity to push back and develop a comprehensive library strategy for how we're going to move forward. I think almost everyone that looks forward 5 years, 3 years, 10 years, is recognizes that our libraries will be primarily electronic in their offerings, and we ought to have a pretty comprehensive plan in place for how we're going to move our activities to line up to those offerings over time. So it's really important to have senior administrative leadership to say, what are we going to do with tech services? What are we going to do in acquisitions? What are we going to do with stacks and space in our libraries? How are we going to redeploy selector activity so that they're not sitting and checking off titles and choice, but doing much more to represent our collections, to be the face of our collections externally to the campus, and structuring electronic resources in ways that they're going to be most useful for users. So, I think it's one thing to think that electronics is going to be better for our libraries or to sort of champion that message, but quite another to put all the little building blocks in place to radically transform our libraries from primarily print-oriented institutions to the electronic institutions that most of us recognize they're going to become. So just moving forward one more slide, I think my next to last. Advantages for electronic formats, electronic book formats. They're pretty well known at this point. Anytime, any place access, the ability to do print on demand or to provide ancillary print products with the electronic access. And I know Springer offers my copy versions of most of their ebooks for $24.99. So, there is opportunity for people to get their hands on print copies of things if they're made available electronically. Trying to sync up to mobile devices so that people can be reading these things on their iPads and iPhones and Kindles. Lots of work to be done there on the technology side. The ability of scholars to work with aggregates of material to do text analysis, the opportunity for us to support international students by having translation protocols that can actually act on ebooks and translate them into other languages, or to work on, for instance, Springer's offering in German books and translate them into English through automated translation protocols. The kinds of discovery tools that Google and others are developing. Just lots of opportunity to provide extended services in an electronic environment that were really never opportunities that we had managing our print collections and our print libraries. So I guess I just want to end by saying, for the CIC at least, and for our institutions, there's been a sort of a grudging recognition that there are some advantages to buying wholesale, to encouraging our campuses, once we've acquired something for in a large batch, to then have each of our campuses individually work to represent that content in the way they're most comfortable to their campus, but not worrying so much about being involved on the details of selection, which books are in, which books are out, or whatever. So I think ultimately we've crossed that hurdle with our libraries, and that served us well. Many of them have some very custom services. Many of them have really pushed this message about the benefits of ebooks and trying to develop text analysis strategies, and trying to promote access for print-disabled users on their campuses. So we're seeing a plethora from our campuses of new services that are being developed on top of these ebook offerings that we've been able to put in place. So, and I guess my last bullet here is just that, you know, we do encourage our libraries to, you know, look forward, try to concentrate their investments in the future, and not always start with, well, you know, everything we've committed to in the past costs this, and we don't have new money to move forward. So the dialogue among our library directors has certainly become more future-oriented and investment-oriented, and I think that message is translating to library staff as well. So thank you very much for sitting through that. I know it must be really hard on the phone, but appreciate the chance to push this message out to you this morning. So, and I'm going to sit with you through the rest of the session today. Thanks.
Thanks, Mark.
Turn back to Betsy.
Hi, Mark. This is Jason. I just want to give you a heads up that there was one question that came in, and it was from Aileen. Aileen, I hope I'm saying that name correctly. But just wanted, if you want to answer this real briefly, she just said, would you find it more helpful to be able to buy chapters only rather than whole books?
Well, from a consortium perspective, we would certainly say whole books. You know, we like, you know, you probably sensed there, you know, we actually live and work kind of remote from individual users and individual faculty needs and individual courses. So we're trying to find the most efficient ways to push content out. And, you know, while chapter purchases, you know, here and there you'll undoubtedly have a selector who knows very well what chapter a particular faculty member wants to use in their class. But our experience has been, if you make the whole book available or if you make a whole collection available, surprise, surprise, people are very likely to come to that content from wherever, from whatever department, for whatever need that content is fulfilling. At some level, it becomes very unpredictable what users are going to come to. And we've actually been pleasantly surprised on the electronic front about their uptake of content. So I guess I would say, sure, here and there you might be able to fine-tune to that extent, but I'm just not sure our collection folks over the years, and I did this for most of my career, have necessarily made the best decisions about what to buy on the one hand and what not to buy on the other hand. So we've really become evangelists for more global approaches.
Great. Thanks, Mark.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you so much for your time today, Mark, and all the great insight you provided. I think now we are going to move into our next session, and what we're going to do for the next hour or so, we are going to have David Solano from Springer give a quick presentation on the evolution of ebooks. Oh, I am so sorry. I jumped ahead of myself. Actually, it's time for our first Amazon gift card giveaway. So, Jason, can you tell us who the lucky #1 winner is?
Sure. Let me just do a random select for everybody. Hold on 1 second for me. Okay, and the winner is Marcia Henry. Marcia, are you on the phone with us? I'm going to unmute you right now. Hi, Marcia? Marcia, can you hear me? Marcia, I know your headset's on. Can you hear me okay?
You said Marcia Henry?
Yes.
Okay, this is Marcia Addison.
Oh, Marcia, hold on 1 second. I'm sorry. Let's see here. Oh, Marcia, I'm sorry. I'm confused on my end. You are the winner of the gift card. I have listed your two Marcia, so I'm sorry. I've Marcia listed twice. So, Marcia, congratulations. You have won the $50 Amazon gift card.
Thank you.
No problem.
Great. Congratulations, Marcia. So, hey, sorry about that for jumping ahead.